Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the cabover. All right, today I'm gonna mess with the throttle pedal assembly on this truck, and then I'd like to figure out the parking brake assembly and the shifter as well. Now, as far as the throttle is concerned, it's gonna be a little bit tricky and it's gonna take a little bit of fab work to get this done. And the reason is, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys that I'm really serious about utilizing as much of the old motorhome parts as possible. And that's what I'm planning on doing. I do have the original motorhome throttle here. I have the original motorhome throttle cable as well. Now, I did look at several different options as far as the throttle on this truck and what I wanted to do, from aftermarket cables, aftermarket universal throttle pedals. You know, I got on Low Car's website, of course, and looked at all their stuff. And, you know, I'm looking at a few $100, but for the cable and a throttle pedal assembly and everything, I'm gonna stick with being cheap on this deal and utilizing what I have. All right, as far as the parking brake assembly, now this truck is equipped with the parking brake that's on the rear, the tail shaft of the transmission, the big brake drum. This should be pretty straightforward. This is the parking brake assembly out of the motorhome. And I will be able to mount this thing up on the firewall in the lower left-hand position, just like it normally would be in a normal vehicle. All right, now as far as the shifter is concerned, that one too is going to be a little bit involved. I'm not using the original steering column from the motorhome. That was on the column, so I can't utilize any of that. However, I do have the original cable and everything. This is a nice heavy-duty cable, so I'll be able to reuse all of that with the brackets. Now, what I'm thinking is this is the original cabover parking brake handle. Now, what I'm thinking about is mounting this in the floor and utilizing this as the shifter. Just a thought I'm having right now. I think I can make it work. It's gonna take a little bit of work to do it. I'll have to make some custom brackets and whatnot to mount it up and then to hook the cable to the bottom of it. But I've been kind of looking at it and trying to figure some stuff out with it, and I think I can make it work, and I think it'd be pretty cool, have this thing as the shifter. Okay, now as for the throttle, now this original motorhome throttle assembly would basically be mounted, well, something like this here. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with this yet and how I'm gonna make this work. You know, this thing I just chopped out of the old motorhome firewall assembly. That's where this was mounted to as well, the braking assembly. So I'd have to try to like figure out how to incorporate this and make it look a little better anyway. The throttle cable pokes up through the floor right here, and then it hooks up to the throttle assembly itself right there. Now, from that point right there where it pokes up through the floor back here to the throttle body, that throttle cable is actually too short to go around and then back to the throttle body itself. Unfortunately, it only goes up to about here or so, so it is short. All right, now obviously with the throttle assembly, it wants to pull back, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna change the direction. And I bought one of these universal throttle bell crank assemblies online. I think I got it from Speedway. So this bracket is fully adjustable for anything that you need to do. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mount this thing back here somewhere, and I'll have to make a bracket that goes to the intake manifold. So what's gonna happen is as I hit that throttle, it's gonna pull on the bottom side of this bracket like that and twist, which will in turn pull the throttle back and work the throttle. So I did get some other parts as well. These are the studs. These are basically the same thing as what's on the throttle body itself that the throttle cable hooks to. So I've got two of those, and I've got a small piece of 3/16 cable, and then I've got a couple eyelets here as well. So these eyelets will just go into the cable like that, and they'll crimp on. So between the throttle body and this bracket here will be a cable, and then the original throttle cable will bolt up to the bottom of this, utilizing one of these here. Now, I know it probably seems like it's a crazy amount of work to do this and have to make a bracket and then put that bell crank in here and everything, but again, if I can utilize a lot of the motorhome parts, you know, that's exactly what I want to do. You know, in the long run, does it save me money? It doesn't save me time, that's for sure. It's going to take me way more time to do this than it would be to buy new parts, but I don't want to spend a couple $100 on throttle parts and whatnot when I have stuff I can use. Okay, I'm just gonna put this throttle up in through the hole here. Okay, just like that. All right, now the throttle will need to be mounted down here somewhere. So as you can see, it's hooked up, but there's not enough there's not enough room for it to circle back around to grab the throttle body. So the bell crank will get mounted in here, and then the throttle cable will get mounted down here and hooked to it somewhere in here, but I don't know where. All right, guys, I made a quick and dirty bracket here, and I'm gonna bolt this to the stud, to this little tower right here. I'm hoping that this will get me close to see kind of where we need to be, if that makes any sense. Now this thing's too far out. I'm gonna have to trim this thing for sure. It's just a matter of playing with this to figure out kind of where I need it. I'm just guessing here. All right, I'm just gonna play with this bracket, rotate it, kind of see where it looks like it's gonna work, maybe not work. I don't know. All right, I think I'm gonna trim this bracket right here. All right, I got that thing cut off. So hopefully I didn't screw myself. Well, that's just gonna let me move it in and out a little bit more. Yeah, that's definitely better. It's lined up a little bit more. I'm trying to keep these in line. This cable will go on the outside of this one, and then I think it's gonna go on the inside of this, one over here. Okay, I'm gonna trim this bracket to match this, essentially. All right, so I went ahead and readjusted this bracket, and I moved this thing forward one hole. My biggest concern is this and how these two pull, because the way the throttle lays over like that. So I've just been messing with this thing here, just trying to kind of figure out how it's gonna act. So I've just been holding this ruler on here, and then just kind of holding it in place and pushing this, trying to get an idea. Okay, I think that's gonna work out right there. So if I put this vertical, I should be fine. All right, well, I have to think about this, but then now I have this, so shoot, I might have to keep this thing in perfect line with each other. All right, well, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna do this 100 times over and over again, basically to try to figure this out. All right, guys, here's where we're at. I've been messing around with this. Now I took the stock throttle mount bracket that went back there and cut a bunch of garbage off of it and got it trimmed up, and luckily enough, I was able to bolt it to the intake manifold here. Of course, I'll beef this up. I'll put another bracket down there, but this at least gets me mocked up anyway. And then just use a piece of baling wire here to try to figure out my distance. And then got that hooked up down there. And I think I've got it set up pretty good right now. So now when I push on this throttle, you can see that it works the throttle and it's going full wide open. So at full throttle, it is bottoming that throttle cable out, so that it is using the full travel of it. So that is the way it's supposed to be. So everything feels fine. It feels like it's operating okay. I don't feel any issues with it or nothing. So now that I know this length, I can go ahead and make this measurement, and I can make my cable for this upper cable. I just took the eyelets that I bought, and I had to sand them down on both sides. They were a little bit too thick to get on the original fitting, so I just took a flap disc to them and knocked them down a little bit and thinned them out. All right, so I'm just gonna crimp one end of this first and see how this goes. I'm gonna push this thing all the way in. I'm curious how far up that thing goes. Okay, it does bottom out, so that's good. Let's see. I don't know which ones will be better. I think these might work better. I'm not expecting this to be very pretty looking, but we'll just go with it, and it is what it is. It is definitely hard, that's for sure. I think that's going to work. That looks good. So now this has to be 4.5 inches, so I'm just going to mark this out on the table. Center to center, because I have to pull this tight a little bit, as best I can anyway. All right, that's centered there. Now I'll mark this cable out. Okay, now let me cut this cable. Let me do a test cut on one of these first to see. Oh, perfect. Cut's easy. Let me give myself a little extra, just in case. Okay. Nope, that's good. 4.5 inches. All right, now let me crimp this thing. Now I need to crimp these on the same plane, or at least as close as possible. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, I can really feel it. I'm going to flip this around. I didn't do that on the other one, but I'm going to on this one. Yeah, that looks good. That looks better. Yeah, cool. That looks good. Feels good. I'd love to put a load test on it, kind of see what kind of pressure it would take to pull it apart, but we're going to go with it. I think it's going to be just fine. I don't see why I got to pull this baling wire off. I don't see anything wrong with it. Baling wire's cheap, at least. Jeez, didn't want to come out. Okay. There. Now this will go on here. Put this back in. All right, and this will go on the throttle body. And I can use the original throttle body lock. There we go. Cool. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. That ain't going nowhere. All right, now I can hook the throttle up. Looks like it's getting full throttle. Yep, it's full throttle. Cool. There's not as much deflection in this bracket as I thought there was going to be. It feels really good, and I don't see anything moving down here. I think I'm gonna put the seat in back in the truck just to figure out foot placement and kind of see what I'm gonna do there. All right, here we go again with the seat. Okay, this throttle is way too high. Yeah, it's way too high. It's too high and it's too close to me. I don't like how close it is to me. My knees are bent weird. I just bent this right now just to kind of see. I don't think I'm getting full throttle now, but even if it was like that, that would be much better. It's a little more comfortable. I may have to shorten that rod. I may have to bring that thing in a little bit so I can move the pedal that way a little bit more, because I would like to move it that way. I mean, it's actually good as far as my alignment here, but it's just too close. You know, and there's this whole mount assembly. I don't know if I'm going to use this or not. I'm just using it for mock-up purposes right now. I'm not real happy, obviously, with how it looks. It's not the most attractive thing either. All right, well, I decided to shorten this throttle linkage, so I took that much out. And I'm just going to re-weld this thing back on. And we'll see if it works or not. It's definitely further away from me, which is good, but it's still too high. All right, new plan. I went ahead and cut the bottom of the throttle pedal off. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp it to a piece of tubing here and then try to figure out my height. And then I can just tack weld it to the floor, and then I can just make some measurements and then make a new backer, essentially. I think that will work, but let's find out. See, because now I can kind of lift this thing up and down where I think it's going to be comfortable anyway. All right, I just checked this thing. I disconnected and pulled up on it. I am not getting full throttle. All right, I'm going to use a Sharpie, and I'm just going to mark this thing so I know I can see that it's getting full throttle. I can clamp this thing on here again and just try to guess at my height here, basically. Whew! All right, guys. I've been messing with this thing for, let's just say, a while. I don't want to admit it. just trying to dial this thing in to get it exactly where I need it has been definitely a pain in the rear end. Let's just say that. All right, here's what I got. I ended up moving all this stuff around. I ended up moving the pedal that way. I ended up shortening the rod a little bit more. I re-drilled the hole for the cable, and I moved the cable back an inch so I could move this thing back an inch to get the pedal away from me a little bit further to make it a little more comfortable. But where I've got it right now, I'm pretty darn happy with it. It's comfortable, and I'm getting full throttle out of it. No issues at all. So I think I've basically got it licked as far as the setup goes. I got a good transition here to the brake pedal, no issues at all. Now the next step will be just basically boxing this in. I'll probably take this thing off and make a template out of it and then start fresh maybe. Yeah, this was definitely a little bit more of a mind twister, just trying to get it all set up right. You know, you want it to be comfortable, plus full throttle, plus, you know, all the positioning and everything just says it's got to be right on the money. Plus I want it to look good, decent too, you know. At least it looks like a normal truck in here anyway. All the pedals look like they're where they're supposed to be, you know. I don't know, maybe I should have just ended up buying a bunch of low car stuff. I know, it probably would have been a lot easier, but this is fun, I don't mind it. It's good to work the brain every once in a while instead of just opening up a package and bolting something in, you know. I enjoy this type of work here, this is fun stuff here. Might take me a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay. I'm willing to put in the work to do it. Especially if it saves me a bunch of money. I'm all about saving the money. Let's see, how do I want to do this? I think I'll just box it in. Keep it simple. Now, what I'm going to do is just transfer punch this. All right, what I'm doing is I'm making a new plate that's going to weld to the floor. And I just cut the old throttle mount off with the nuts and everything already on it. And I'm just going to use that as a backer on here. And I'm just going to weld this thing on. All right, now I'll just bolt this throttle back onto here. Okay, now this thing is just gonna get welded to the floor. Okay. All right, so that's where I had it. So now I can start cutting sheet metal around for this thing. 6 3/4, 3 1/8 up there, down there. 6 3/4 by 3. 6 3/4 by 3 1/8. I got that cut. All right, I'm not going to tack it to the firewall yet because I need to make a piece in here that's going to be a little tricky. All right, let's try 2-inch bend. I'm just going to try to bend this in the vise. I don't have to bend it very much. But of course, I'm not going to get the edges perfectly. But if I can get it close enough, I'll be happy. Fancy sheet metal brake here, boys. All right, that'll work. That's not bad, that works. All right, that last bend was good. Now I gotta trim it. So we're going to take off about 1/4 of an inch. Let's see how this thing, I had to do a little massaging here on the bottom, but this piece now is going to just drop in here, like so. You can see kind of what I'm doing there because I have to go around that throttle linkage there to give it room. Of course, getting in there to weld some of this is going to be fun later, but that's future Wally's problem. All right, now I just need to make a quick plate for this up here, but I think what I'll do is I'll just take this thing out now. And yeah, I'll just take it out. All right, let me disconnect the throttle and pull this back out again. For probably the 100th time. All right, so you can see here how it has to go around that throttle arm there. Alrighty. Make sure I'm close here before I commit to this. Looks good. Clean it up. Should be able to tack this in place. All right, that turned out pretty good. I don't know why I was doing that with my helmet on the whole time. I was wondering why my neck was hurting. All right, that turned out pretty sweet. Corners look really good. That'll be a nice little mount. Now that'll weld to the firewall, and that'll be a good solid platform for that throttle, so. I'm just gonna double check everything. Let me get the throttle pedal, bolt it back up. Cause that would suck. I mean, nothing really should have moved, so it should be fine, but you just never know. All right, let me make sure we're getting full throttle here. Yep, getting full throttle. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I guess it is a little awkward here. I wasn't sure when I did this floor, I wasn't sure how all this was gonna lay out. So that's why I did this over here and I left this open because I wasn't sure what was gonna happen with this throttle. I can do something in here later. I don't know. I could mount something here or, who knows. right, good enough. Got that thing all welded up. All right, there's that. Everything looks really good. It's getting full throttle, so now I have full access to all 180 horsepower. All right. Oh, what do you guys think about the, I know when I built the engine cover for this, I mentioned covering that thing in carpet, but I'm not sold on carpet. But what do you guys think as far as flooring for this thing? I've been thinking about everything really, from carpet or just doing, somebody had mentioned bed liner, spraying the whole thing, and I thought about that as well. I also considered, what about wood? What do you guys think about wood? I think it'd be kind of cool. I don't know, like a semi, you know, some of the show trucks and whatnot do the wood flooring. I think that'd be different, being this is a lumber truck. You know, with Mackamer Lumber Company, I'm kind of paying homage to the lumber company. I did think about that. I just don't know what to do. I'm not good with working with wood. I can barely work with metal, never mind wood. So that would definitely be a challenge for me. But if I just kept it really simple, I wouldn't mind, you know. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. I'd be curious to get your guys' opinion on it. And I do value your guys' opinion. I definitely do, and I do appreciate it. And I appreciate the comments and the criticisms or whatever. You know, I'm here for it. So I'm just a goofball in my backyard. Okay, got that bracket. Let's see if we got this thing where I can tack weld it anyway. Okay, we're good there. Ooh, got just enough clearance, barely. Okay, one custom bell crank mount bracket, I guess, huh? I was gonna go weld this on the workbench, but I have a workbench right here. Okay, I got another piece of scrap here, and I just trimmed it to fit a little bit. So this will bolt to the intake, and then I think I can get it right underneath of this bracket, close to it anyway, and weld that in place right there. I think that'll work just fine. All right, I think that is gonna work. Got it cooled off. Now that thing will go through here, snap into place, hooked onto there, put my cable on. Yeah, that thing's nice and solid now. Yep, it's perfect. All right, sweet, that's gonna work good. All right, I'm just gonna finish up the details on this thing, and then we'll take a look at the final product, I guess. And then we can look at let's look at the parking brake. All right, there we go, guys. She is good. Everything's buttoned up, it's working properly. Man, it feels good, it's nice and smooth. Now all I really gotta do is just tie up that cable somewhere underneath the cab, but I'll do that later. This cab's gotta come back off again anyway, so it doesn't matter. Oh man, cool. That feels good to have that done. I was a little worried about doing that and if that was gonna work or not, but yeah, no problem at all. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get this parking brake situation figured out and get this thing mounted. You know, yeah, it's not the fanciest thing in the world, the stock one or whatever for the motorhome, but I don't care, it's what I have, and if it does the job, that's all I care about. All right, so I'm just gonna mount it right here on the firewall. There's already a hole here for I have no idea what, but I just gotta drill this out and then drill another one above it. And then I will just mount this thing right up here. It'll tuck nice and tight up here. One issue, I thought when I mocked this thing up that cable was long enough, and it technically is barely long enough. So here's the two holes where that thing's gonna bolt up, but this cable needs to go up here, roughly right in here, and that's a pretty tight bend, you know, to go in through the firewall. And then if I do that, there's nothing, it's just a straight shot down to the transmission. So I don't like that because there's nothing to really mount that to. All right, so I think what I'll do instead is I'll just mount this thing right here. It doesn't affect anything moving it right here, and then the cable will poke through right here, and that'll be a lot easier bend on that cable. I'm thinking about shortening this bracket. If I just cut an inch or two out of this thing and move this that way, then it'll move the pedal a little bit further down too and kind of keep it flush with the door opening. Honestly, I don't really care what it looks like. This doesn't bother me at all. I just need it to be functional, and it'll definitely be functional. All right, I'm gonna mark this thing out and give it a cut here. I'll have to make 2 cuts on it. That'll be easy enough. Oh, you know what I could do? Now that I'm looking at this, I can mock this thing up in the truck and I can angle this bracket to kind of compensate a little bit for the floorboard. Let me look at that. You bolt this thing up to the firewall. I didn't even think about that until just that second. Yeah, that'll help. You know what I'll do is I'll just cut this thing out. Well, I gotta be careful though, because I can't go at too much of an angle. I can at least give it a little bit. Yeah, I think if I just gave it a little bit of angle, that would help. And then I'll just mark this down like that. Let me cut that real quick. All right, let's try that. All right, that sits in there okay. Yeah, that'll be fine. The floor is definitely gonna need some bracing. I guess, all right, that is all the way down, but that should be enough. I mean, that's basically it's full stroke. No, that should be fine because I can adjust all that out with the cable, you know. Okay. Drop this through. Let me get a bolt started real quick. All right, that's snugged up, cable's hooked up. Now I gotta go hook it back up at the transmission. I love using the OEM stuff. If I can use as much of the OEM stuff as possible, I will. That's why I want to use as many motorhome parts as I can, because then chances are better of finding parts. Because then if you're out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, small town Kansas or something, you can, be at an O'Reilly and chances are pretty good you can find a part. Okay, good. There, that's fully locked right there. Yep. I'll reinforce the floor because I got to fill all this stuff in anyway, all these holes. I'm not using them. And then I can figure out some kind of support brace. I'm not sure what I'll do there yet. That'll work. All right. Bolt this thing back up. And I made a little bracket here to go. I'm gonna go, instead of triangulating this to the firewall, I'm just gonna go to the side panel. I think it'll work out okay. At least I'm gonna find out anyway. I'm just gonna swing this over. I should be able to just bolt this thing up. The tricky part is gonna be getting the nut up in here, unfortunately. Maybe. Let me take a look. Looks like I might have gotten it. Got it. Oh, that's nice and solid. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, just mounting it to the sidewall is plenty, I think. I don't think it's gonna need anything else, and it looks good too. I didn't want a bar going up diagonally. This thing's nice and solid. The thing doesn't want to move. Very little flex in it anyway. Cool, that looks good. I'll have to find some kind of little rubber grommet or something to put on that. That's not a big deal. And it looks like I got plenty of room here to anchor this thing, either on the tree work or on the bottom of the body all the way down to the transmission. And it's all hooked up here and I got plenty of adjustment. All right, well, there you go, voila. Now we got throttle and a parking brake. So unfortunately in this video, I won't be able to get to the transmission shifter yet. I think that's gonna be a separate video all on its own. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have to make a bracket and it's gonna poke down through the floor, yada, yada. Anyway, I'll figure it out. All right, but for now, that's a big step, having the throttle done, and the parking brake is really nice to have as well, even though I don't have a drive shaft yet, but I'll figure that out when I figure out the wheelbase. I still don't know what I want to do there. Two more things off the list. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys, as far as what you guys want to see, do you not want to see? I know there's a lot of little things on this thing I need to do, obviously. I'm sure you guys don't want to watch any of that stuff. You know, I got to do the brake lines and the power steering lines and all that stuff. I don't think I'm necessarily going to show all that stuff. I just don't think it's necessary. You know, let me know what you guys want to see or not see. I figure this stuff might help somebody, you know, if they're building a cabover. You know, just a different perspective, if you will. This whole truck is a different perspective on how to build a truck, of course. I'll probably show a lot of it, but that little stuff like that, doing the brake lines and the power steering lines, I'll show it once I'm done. But honestly, I don't want to waste the time videoing it. It's a lot to video this stuff and then edit it and make a video out of it. So I can show all that stuff once it's completed. I don't know, kind of leaning towards that wood floor. I think it might be kind of neat. Tie a wood floor in with the flatbed, you know, a wood deck flatbed on that. Be kind of cool, something different. I don't know. Now, as far as the next video goes, I'm really not sure. There's obviously a ton to do, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. I'd actually really like to start tackling the exhaust and the air intake as well. I do have an idea on that. I think I'm going to go up the back of the cab like the old school cabovers. So that could be possibly the next video, or I might just do a whole bunch of little oddball stuff and then do an update video and kind of show you what I've been doing. You know, if I do the brakes and the power steering and I don't film any of that, I'll just do an update later. Oh, and another thing, what do you guys think about doing a live? I was thinking about doing a live at some point, maybe on a weekend, you know. I'm not sure the best time to do it, but let me know what you guys think if you'd be interested in that as well. All right, guys, well, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Appreciate the comments and I appreciate the support. We're getting there one piece at a time. All right, stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you. Have a great day. Hey, if you don't mind, please subscribe.